Hey guys, Thomas Asulu Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Mother! Exclamation point. So, I didn't know anything about this movie, and after watching it, I didn't even know that this was the poster for it, to be even honest. So, I didn't know what I was getting into. I heard little whispers about what this movie was going to be, but this movie wasn't really promoted all that well. At least I don't remember it being promoted all that well until I started seeing a hint of a review, but I didn't actually watch it, the actual review itself. So I went in essentially blind into what this movie was. So the movie starts off with this woman on fire, and then it wakes up. It's like the next day or something, and then the character Jennifer Lawrence plays wakes up yelling "baby" or saying "baby," and she's walking around this house, and then her husband essentially like sneaks up on her, and he claims that he's a writer, so he's writing something. She offers him some tea. And then, as they're trying to get a little bit more comfortable, this random doctor comes in, just from out of nowhere, uh, and then, like, she's, like, hallucinating or, like, having some sort of trouble, like, she's, like, having, like a headache or something, or, like, a heart, I don't know, it's, like, some sort of issue where she's, like, something's messing with her head or something. So she goes into the basement, and then she has like this little freak out. Um, and then we see the husband trying to write some more. In the meanwhile, she's trying to rebuild the house or make the house better. Meanwhile, this doctor continues to be sick. Like he's like sick, and then he's like fine, and then he's like sick again. And then from out of nowhere, the doctor's wife suddenly enters the home as well, and now she's in the picture, and she's like kissing him, and then they're like, yeah. So they talk about the two of them, the two wives, talk about how she wants a kid and stuff like that. And so the other mother talks about how she has a kid and how things are, nice. And she does get a little bit repetitious about asking her, the main wife, about, or Jennifer Lawrence, I'll just call her that, that, you know, do you love him? Like, she keeps asking her that, like, a few times throughout the movie. Or, like, in the first half of the movie, I should say. Because this little couple does end up eventually leaving. But, so, she's like, I guess that we could have kids, but I don't know what the issue is, um, so this other wife wants to see, like, explore the house, wants to explore, like, this specific room, and then and then Jennifer Lawrence's character is all like, no, 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 you can't go in there. Uh, you know, she's like looking in the drain of her, like, restroom. She's saying, like, there's hair in there. She, like, pulls it out. So now, the Jennifer Lawrence's character figures that the husband is like some sort of crazed fan, and when the husband comes back, she's like, "Hey, this guy is kind of crazy," and then he's like, "Yeah, I know, but we got to let these people in. The guy's gonna die, so why not just have him here for the rest of the time until that happens, essentially." But Jennifer Lawrence's character still wants them to leave. And at this point, I'm like wondering, like, why doesn't she just call the cops? Like, and then like the husband like grips this glass, and then they're like doing something. Um, So the wife returns to the husband, and they claim that they're gonna end up going, but then like there's one of their sons visits, and then there's like now another person in their house, and then the other son comes barging in, and then they start immediately fighting after like a few moments, and then like the I believe the first son who comes in dies, like the brother kills him, and now there's like a dead body there, and I'm like going, call the police, like what are you doing? So like that's my initial like what was going on as I was watching this, like come on, just do the thing that happens in some other horror movies, which I'll get to that in a bit. But so so now she's seeing like this black spot under like this rug. She had this rug in like the baby's room. uh so she was like trying to figure out what it was. She was like going off underneath it. um so there, I don't know if that really leads to anything, but like she checks like the basement eventually. Um, so now she goes under like, into this basement, sees a frog. And then the son that was still alive, like sneaks up on her. So she wants to be alone. Jennifer Lawrence's character. And then the husband finally returns because he went to go take one of them to like the hospital or something. Um, so the husband is back and trying to, be with her or whatever. And then she hears the doorbell all of a sudden, and now more people want to come inside. And these people are, according to the movie, like family members trying to mourn the loss of the brother. So there now people are coming in, they're grieving, and stuff is happening. And she's just like, what is happening? Who are these people? No one's really explaining themselves. Um, Everything is so unclear. Um, so yeah, more people end up in the house, and she's still getting these migraines while this is going on, and it's getting worse. And now she's like, after she like recuperates, now there are people like painting her house for her. She's like, oh, the people are like, oh, you let us in. This is the least we could do. We should paint your house. And she's like, no, 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 don't do that. Please stop. And then they're like, oh, fine, whatever. Um, and now this other guy just comes up at her, talking to her, like hitting on her, and she never ever says like, "Oh, I have a husband." Like that part kind of irritated me. Like she kept saying, "Oh no no, whatever, you just whatever," and then like after like he was like hitting on her and hitting on her, he's like all of a sudden he like burst out like, "Oh, you're a cunt," and then like he like started to attack her or something. I'm like, what is happening? Why doesn't she call the police? Why is it taking her so long to like do something about this situation? It's gotten out of hand way too soon. Like when the person was killed, the police should have been called. Situation should have went out. Not have gotten this far. Now this is happening. So now I'm like, again, she should call the police. So anyways, she's like trying to break away from or like these other people are trying to break apart, and then like she's like yelling now, Jennifer Lawrence's character, and then they're like yelling back at her, like they're pissed at her. um and then like she like goes like they eventually like all leave at some point, and then like she's like talking to her husband, and then she's like, "Oh, why did things get out of this control?" And then like they finally mention a baby, and then they're like, "Oh, let's just make out." So some time passes. I don't know how much time passes. I would assume like it's very unclear. But then she's like, she has the belly of someone who's pregnant. Um, So now the guy's getting called, the husband is getting called by these publishers and all these other people. Um, and now, like, the blood that she saw was spreading on the carpet again. And she feels so alone with the whole baby thing and, like, being left alone. And now more people are showing up in the house again. And they start just, like, ripping out stuff. Like, she like, finally decides, okay, now I have to call the police. And then they rip out the phone, which, again, I still think she could have used earlier, or at least attempted to move earlier. And then this rave just burst out of nowhere, like she's in, like, the second floor, and then she's looking down, and then you see this rave just start happening with all these people. And then, like, like, the husband comes to her briefly, and then, like, she gets, like, separated from him, I think, and then, like, these shots just start getting fired at, and now there are these riots that are happening all within this house, and now there are, like, people being, like, put down and then killed, and people are getting murdered, and then the riot police guy that was, like, trying to comfort her ends up getting shot. And the husband is trying to move her, like, when they are able to meet again. So they move into this one room where she's able to give birth to a boy. And then she, like, tells him to get everyone else to leave because, she doesn't want to have what was been happening outside happen to the boy. But he doesn't want them. He finally admits he doesn't want them to go. And then they just start looking at each other for a while. And then the scene, like, goes on for a bit. And then she finally gets tired. And then he, like, just takes the baby, shares the baby. And then the baby's, like, gets crowd surfed to, like, far away. And the mother's, like, trying to, Jennifer Lawrence's character is trying to give chase. And then you just see the baby get killed, like, in the air, like, it's in the air, and then something happens. On my first watch, I thought it was a bit unclear as to how the baby died, and then as soon as, like, she goes toward to see what happened, the baby's already, like, cut up, and then she turns around to see the people, like, eating and mourning. I think there was, like, a brief moment where they were, like, mourning the baby's death, and then they started eating the baby. And then she starts going nuts, and well-deserved on her end. These people have just been absolutely rude, and then now they were tearing her baby apart, complete and utter strangers, just doing this thing, and then she finally loses it, and the people, they attack her back, and then they're quite vicious in their attack. But the husband is able to, like, sort of get back to her, and he's, like, saying, "Oh, we have to forgive them. We have to forgive them, even though they did this." And she's like, "No, like, what are you thinking? Are you crazy?" Like, so she eventually, like, goes down to the basement where all this oil is, or, like, these, I guess, like, beer kegs are, or whatever it was. She, like, lights up the room. She tosses the lighter on the floor, and then the house blows up and everyone else in it. I don't know how the fire got that far, even though it was only in the basement, but whatever. And after, like, she gets, like, burned to a crisp, she, like, barely opens her eyes, and then she sees that the guy, her husband, is completely and utterly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. Like, he somehow, like, wasn't even caught in the blast in the first place. And then he claims to be something. Like, he says something, and I've watched other reviews after this, and so far I have not heard anyone, like, everyone else I've heard didn't hear what he said, so I'm really upset that I missed that as well. And I'll get to other reviewers in a minute, by the way. I just want to finish my little recap here. Anyways, he claims that he wants to take everything back to the beginning, and then he says that she has to give the last bit of her, which is her love. So he rips it out of her, and then he grabs this little gem, which we saw in like pretty early on in the movie, the thing that he was guarding, or she was guarding for him, I would say, which at one point shattered. So he like remakes it, and then the house is rebuilt and everything starts over with a supposed new mother. So after that confusing fodge podge mess of a movie, I decided to watch a few other reviews because honestly, when I first watched this movie, which I've only done once and I don't know if I'd do it again, but I honestly had no clue what this movie was. Like, I still didn't understand what the hell was happening. And I had to watch a few other reviews, and some people picked apart that, you know, this is an allegory for God, and she would be Mother Earth and all this stuff. Like, and I was like, oh, okay, I see. I see. And, like, all these other references to, like, religious stuff. And yeah, that never once clicked for me personally. So yeah, there's that. Um, you know, the beginning of the movie still paced really slow, and then it goes completely off the rails with all at once the people start coming in, and then you're just like wondering like what is happening, like all this stuff is like happening. And there's like so many different sections, like when the second wave of people come in, that it was just too much. I'm pretty sure I missed some stuff throughout that, and you know, now that context of the whole God stuff comes into play, yeah, I can see where some of that fits in, but you know, apparently this was promoted as a horror movie. I didn't even know that much. So I'm really glad that actually happened. Please lie more in trailers. Please, we need more of that. I really appreciate that first and foremost. The acting was pretty solid, but the pacing was a little bit ruggish toward the start of the movie. The whole God angle of the movie, like I said, I personally don't understand, like, I don't follow religious stuff all that much, so when, like, that never even clicked to my mind throughout the entire movie, to be completely honest. You know, like, when I was watching the movie, I just thought, oh, these people are just, like, coming in and just doing stuff, and it's so weird and bizarre and odd, and I don't know, like, I don't know what was supposed to be happening, and yeah, it's an interesting movie to say the least. There was that one other religious movie that I watched where the religious content was a little bit more obvious because they actually just say, "Oh, I am God" and stuff like that. A little bit more direct in the other movie. I forget. I think it's called The Shed. The Shed is the movie I'm referring to. I think that's what it's called. This movie was a little, like I said, for me it felt a little bit more vague than that, but for some others I guess they were able to pinpoint that this was immediately a story about God and stuff like that. And again, since I don't know much about that actual story, I don't know everything about Adam and Eve, I didn't even, like, there's some parts that just threw me for a loop. Like, if that was supposed to be Adam and Eve, I think that's kind of miscasting then, because I would assume if you're going to do Adam and Eve, you would make them younger. Like, younger people. And the couple you see is really old. Like, that never clicks for me. Like, they were supposed to represent Adam and Eve? Why are they so old? Again, just my thought on that little part. Even the sons, I forget what I watched other reviews, but I already forgot what the context with the two brothers was. Again, I don't follow religion stuff that often, so I don't know the whole murder thing represents again. But like, I thought that if Adam and Eve should have been younger, then they should have been also really young, like teens young. But you know, the representation just felt so off after hearing like, oh, they're supposed to represent Adam and Eve. you don't know. Um, and I guess there are some other context stuff that's a little bit more obvious. Um, so I don't know. Uh, I still enjoyed the movie, even though I was confused. And I'd still give it a 7 out of 10. Again, I think the pacing of the beginning of the movie kind of hurt it for me. Some of the shots were a little bit jarring, to say the very least. There's a lot of close up shots of the main character, and like it takes a while for us to get to that point. I think there could have been a few other things that could have been a bit more vague, and like there, I'm pretty sure, like the stuff about the Bible. The Bible's a really big thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens in it. That's all. That's the amount of knowledge I know about the Bible. So, um, there wasn't one interesting thing I wanted to mention after the whole learning about this whole religious aspect is there doesn't seem to be a representation of the devil, which again plays in. I would assume would play a part in this. I don't know if there's ever a point in time where the devil is introduced as a character. I don't think that happens. I don't recall that happening. And if it did, I completely missed it. I don't even know if that was supposed to be the point of it. If the devil was even supposed to be a thing. Again, there's still a lot of stuff I don't understand about this movie, even after learning it had religious context. So, again, 7 out of 10. Definitely check it out. And let me know in the comments, like, there's so much stuff, like, I still don't understand about this movie, even after learning its religious content. So, if you did like this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, bye!